an interesting comparison here, that Jesus starts not with a great tree. He starts by comparing the kingdom of heaven unto a very tiny seed, a herb seed, about the size of a pinhead. And in fact, others point out, and even Jesus does here in verse 33, that this particular seed is smaller than all the other seeds. That these seeds, in comparison to this herbal garden, not all seeds, the seeds comparable to this illustration, it's the least of them all. It's the smallest of them all, which they would have known and fully accepted this proverbial statement that of smallness, of being insignificant. In fact, it is a known fact that during this time and even today, that it's not uncommon for someone to make a proverbial statement as small as a mustard seed. You're about as big as a mustard seed, boy. That's how you know what that means? That means that's a little fella. You got little bitty fellas trying to be big fellas. And you can look at them and you can say, son, you're about the size of a grasshopper. We talk in terms of like that. We use terminology like that to determine smallness, right? I mean, we all know what we mean. When you hear that, you're like, that boy's about this small. He's insignificant. And this is what Jesus does here, which had to astound the hearers, and it definitely had to astound his disciples. The least of the seeds is what Jesus likens the kingdom of heaven. It's not impressive. In fact, there's nothing impressive about it. It's not just that it's not impressive, it's just like it's insignificant. But notice what he goes on to say. Notice how he moves in the illustration. He says, it's like a mustard seed which a man took and sowed in his field. It has a purpose. There's the expectation. As the man goes to sow this herb seed, the expectation is that it will blossom and it will grow. But not only that this particular plant grows to be the greatest of all of the other herbs. And that's what he says here. He says, this is smaller than the other seeds, but when it's fully grown, it is larger than the garden plants and becomes a tree. And there's a lot of debate and there's a lot of, let's see, how would I put this in a pleasant way? There is just a lot of evangelical quibbling about, is it a tree, is it a large bush? That's not the point of the parable. The point of the parable is not to give us a lesson on botany or plants. The point of the parable is to drive home the truth that the kingdom of heaven starts out insignificant. It's just unimpressive. But Jesus creates this expectation in his lesson that what starts out as small and insignificant and unimpressive will be the greatest of all in the end. Not just great. Notice what it says. Larger than the garden plants and becomes a tree. The greatest of all. There will be no other kingdom greater than this kingdom. That's the point that Jesus makes. It's a lesson, if you will, not just from the least to the greatest, but it's that which is insignificant. Nobody, you drop a handful of mustard seeds, so what? You pick up, it's no big deal. You can pick up thousands of mustard seeds in one handful. It's just When we view things that are insignificant, like things that are cheap, things that are things you throw away, right? They're not impressive. If something cheap, particularly most of the stuff that you can buy at Walmart, it breaks or something, and so what? You can just go spend another $1 and get another one. That seems to be the idea that Jesus is using to help his hearers ponder the depth of their own hearts about the kingdom of heaven. Now, brothers and sisters, like them, you and I have thoughts about the kingdom of heaven. We have ideas about it. We have ideas to its depth, its breadth, its glory, its power, its future, its current situation. And some of us may wring our hands when we watch the news or when we listen to certain political podcasts. We wring our hands and we wonder, what's becoming of the kingdom of heaven? And this parable teaches us that there is a glorious future and plan mapped out for the kingdom of heaven.